Today I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips before you move to Houston, and watch to the end. I'm going to give my favorite tip at the end. I believe it will be your favorite as well. I am a born and raised Houstonian. I've lived a few other places like Austin and Dallas and Colorado, but I've moved back because this is where my family is, this is where my home is. I've lived in many different areas of Houston, so I have a lot of experience of what different things and activities to do, restaurants, and I've had friends and family live all over as well. Let's start with the first thing. Expect extreme weather in the Houston area. So we have flat geography and we're also close to the Gulf Coast. So this leaves us susceptible to extreme weather conditions. The number one thing that's really well known about Houston is our hurricanes. Hurricane season starts from June and ends in November. It's a good idea to have flood insurance no matter what. Even if you're outside of the special flood zone area, I consider Houston to be a flood zone in general. Even with when we look at FEMA maps, neighborhoods that don't have history of flooding. So we had Hurricane Harvey in 2017 with a lot of downfall rain that caused many neighborhoods all over Houston to flood. We've had thunderstorms and tropical storms that hit Houston too. So areas that never experienced floods before all of a sudden did, and it just depends on where the water hits. And we also look at homes, different elevations and all that. Those standards are changing over time as the flood maps update. And just be prepared for have an evacuation plan if a hurricane ever is to hit. So expect strong thunderstorms in the Houston area as well. I personally love the rain. I think it's really soothing and relaxing, and that's kind of those days where you want to stay home and be cozy. But this is something that's important to talk about with new construction, grounding rods, making sure that lightning, if it ever strikes the home, it goes into the ground and not causing a fire in your home. Houston does experience freezing weather as well. This is not every year, but 2021, we had a freeze where we were out without power. I personally was out without power for 3 or 4 days, where I house hopped from friend's house to my family's house, just trying to stay warm, trying to find the home that had electricity. We had another freeze again this year in 2024. There were emails sent out for people to conserve energy early in the morning on those days because that's when everyone was waking up or using electricity to heat their homes. On those days, it's good to protect your pipes, to cover your sprinkler system. I have a bag that I put over mine that insulates it. We turn the water off on everything. When it gets to really low temperatures, we just turn off the main water line on our property. And that's just because we don't want to experience any pipe burst. We don't want to deal with those expenses. There's always videos online that you can watch on how to protect your pipes during the freeze. Road conditions, schools might be closed. You might be advised to stay home. They had highway closures just to ensure safety. And we experience extreme heat. So we're at a subtropical latitude and we have the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. So we have a tropical climate. I know different areas, like when I lived in Austin, it was definitely drier. Here in Houston, it's a more humid heat. So it's a little bit different experience. So from mid-May all the way through September, October, feels like summer. Midsummer, July, August is where it gets the hottest temperatures. We can have days and days where it's above 100 degrees. If you have pets or dogs, walk them really early in the morning or walk them really late at night. Stay hydrated during these days. When it gets to those extreme days, it can be miserable, especially with the humidity. We have a humidity index above in the mid-70s. It can get a little bit miserable during the summer, but I'm born and raised in Houston. I'm kind of used to it and I prefer heat over cold. So everyone has, sometimes people in the middle of summer, we can't wait till it gets to winter again. We also have droughts, especially during these times with extreme heat. I advise people to consider drought-tolerant plants for your landscaping, or Texas native plants, things that can experience all the extreme weather conditions, so you're not having to refresh your landscaping year after year as well. Some of Texas natives would be native sage, muley grass, vitex. I love vitex. They're really pretty, purple flowers on them, or purple cone flowers. So these are just a few examples of just a mention to go along with weather. We do have bugs in Houston. I don't want to say much about it. They freak me out, but we got mosquitoes, we got roaches, we do have termites, especially in more wooded areas. So working with an inspector to check out your house and hiring companies for pest control and maintaining that is a good thing to consider. And I know this is not weather related, but the sunsets in Houston, I think, are the most gorgeous sunsets. And I have a bias, but we have gorgeous rainbow skies. It's one of my favorite times of the day just to go outside, go for an evening walk and just watch the sunset, watch all the colors and how they change very quickly from those golds to the pinks to the deep purples. It's really beautiful. Especially when you go to Crystal Beach or Galveston, it could be beautiful there too. So the second thing I want to talk about is traffic. I know some people have been moving to LA, different areas where congestion is worse. And in Houston, covers 627 square miles. It is ranked the third largest major city after Jackson, Florida, and Oklahoma City. And so in comparison, Dallas has 385 square miles. Los Angeles spans 502 square miles, and New York City is 468 square miles. So Houston is huge and it's continuously expanding. So areas like Richmond, Magnolia, areas that used to seem separate from Houston, Manville, Texas, now it's all kind of merging together, especially as our population grows. Houston has one of the most fastest growing cities in the United States, and the increase in population has led to a surge in the number of vehicles. Houston is very much a vehicle city. It's very difficult to get around if you don't have a car, but there are bus systems, there are rail light systems, but there's just more stops in between, and it's going to take you longer, even with traffic, to commute through Houston. There's definitely pockets of Houston that are a little bit more walkable. Sometimes a commute can be over an hour, depending on Houston. There's a joke that Houston's an hour away from Houston, plus some. Even sometimes I drive long distances to show houses and meet clients, and I'm in traffic all day long. Even though our rush hour is typically from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., which sometimes I think that's wrong. I think sometimes at like 6 o'clock traffic hour can start in the morning sometimes, and then it's 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at night, and sometimes I think at 3 p.m. there can be a really bad traffic around 3 p.m. too. So sometimes I feel like rush hour feels like it lasts all day, but some days you can get through Houston pretty quickly. But close to 59 and 610, that's one of the most congested areas of Houston. Things are very spread out, far apart from each other. You might think one neighborhood's close to another neighborhood, but it might be a 30-minute drive between the two. So we have property taxes, we don't have income taxes, but it's going to range on different areas. We might see it in Houston, you might be a little bit closer to 2.2% tax rate. When we get further out into the suburbs, especially new construction areas that have very new developed infrastructure, it could be as high as 3.8%. It could be higher than that too. I'm going to zero in on a few neighborhoods to give you an example of what it looks like, the tax rates. And these are estimated tax rates. It will go off the year before, so every year it might adjust. When you're looking at properties online, it's good to get an idea of what the tax rate is. You're also able to protest your taxes if you have questions about that. I've helped hundreds of people. I do a lot of protest events around Houston, so if you ever have questions about property taxes, how to protest, I'm happy to help you with that. And then also just pay attention, we don't have zoning laws in Houston. We do have deed restrictions in certain areas. We do have planning and private restrictions depending on the neighborhood. Some neighborhoods may not have zoning laws. It is common living in Houston to have residential areas with businesses close by, or properties that could be both. They could be considered residential and commercial. But there is planning that still exists in Houston. There's historic restrictions, so areas where they want to keep as many of the original homes as possible. There's also height, so how tall, how high a building can be built in certain areas, and density restrictions as well. Even though we don't have zoning in Houston, there is still planning, and I'm happy to guide you through that depending on what area that you're interested in. When you're looking around Houston, you might think you see a few rivers running through, but this is the Bayou City, so those are bayous running through Houston. So there are a lot of parks that we have around the bayous as well. So over 50,000 acres of park space. Houston is a major port city next to the Gulf of Mexico. So certain areas I'll see a little bit more susceptible close to the bayous for flooding. I have a video on popular trails and parks to visit. If you ever want to see that, I'll have a link in the description of this video. Houston may not be known as the most beautiful city, but we definitely have pockets and areas where you can visit and go for hikes. We have the Woodlands, which I think is gorgeous, tons of trails in the Woodlands. We have Memorial Park, many parks and trails in Houston along the Buffalo Bayou. And then we also have Galveston as well and Crystal Beach, where we have a lot of beautiful outdoor space and nature to go visit. We have Herman Park near the Museum District. This is one of those beautiful spots you can go to see those beautiful Houston sunsets too. So the biggest chunk of green space in Houston is in Memorial Park, and this is 1,466 acres. And they've done a lot of updates recently. We have a new bridge where you can cross over, where they extended the green space. You see people that are training for the marathon running out there. So just really beautiful place and spaces for community. So in Memorial Park, there's over 30 miles of trails where you can hike, walk, and even mountain bike, as well as picnic areas with just beautiful trees outside, so you can enjoy a meal outside, or we have food trucks throughout the city as well. So, speaking of food trucks, that brings me to our final topic, which is food. So whenever people ask me what do I do in Houston, I just start talking about restaurants. If you ever want to know a few restaurants that I love, I always have my favorite spots, but there's a never ending. You can explore forever and never, experience every restaurant in Houston. I had a friend just the other last week introduce me to a new spot that I've never heard of, and I was like, this is one of my new favorite spots. We have a huge amount of diversity here in Houston. We have over 70 countries represented from all different regions, and we have over 10,000 restaurants. There's always tons of places to explore. Of course, we're known for our Tex-Mex, our Mexican restaurants, our barbecue, Cajun food, Japanese restaurants, you name it. We have literally everything. Persian food. Houston has been made the top 20 list for most affordable cities for foodies. So it might be $30 a meal if you're going somewhere nice, having a good night out. And oh my gosh, I'm getting so hungry talking about this. The original Ninfa's, close to downtown. Handy's Dojo is my favorite sushi spot in Houston. They have a Heights location and a Montrose location. Tons of barbecue spots throughout the city. There's always an excuse to meet up with someone and try something new. All right, thanks guys for watching today. Of course, there's tons of things that I could go over today about Houston, but I just wanted to give you those 5 main points. Keep watching. I'll be making more videos. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll be going over more things about specific neighborhoods, different market reports to keep you informed about moving to Houston.